Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, well here we are, ready to break down episode 2 of season 7, The Happiest Place on Earth. I don't know about y'all, but I was not feeling happy at the end of this. It was a rough one, though performance-wise, theatrical-wise, it was excellent and maybe in some of my top episodes of all time. We shall see how it progresses. This had lots of book-accurate information, though shuffled around in a few interesting ways. But yeah, I also fully expect to cry while reviewing this. If you are just finding me for some reason, hi, I'm Jen. Again, hello. I'm a huge fan of Outlander. I've been watching and reviewing it for the past 5 years and reading the books. The books are, of course, my true passion for this. And so my recaps have an eye towards book accuracy. I do care about the performances and how it goes, but I'm really here for the people who want it to be book accurate and who are looking to find that. And recently, I just feel like they've been knocking it out of the park with that. You know, I feel like they did that last season for the most part, and they're doing it this season so far too. So I absolutely love that. And the way that I break these down is I will do a recap of the episode with a little bit of Jen flair. So we'll go through that. Then I will give you kind of my rating versus my rating of enjoyment and my rating versus how I think it did book accurate wise. And then at the last part, I will talk about the things that they changed, what I liked and didn't like about said changes, and that's kind of how we wrap this up. So that is what you'll get from me. I've been trying to put chapter times down below, so if you don't care about the recap part because you're like, I just want to know what Jen thinks about that, you can skip to whatever time, or you can just, get your whiskey. Today I have orange juice because it's still pretty early in the day for me, and buckle in. So let's go. Okay, let's go. So, as I predicted in last week's wrap-up, we are pretty much wrapped up with A Breath of Snow and Ashes with this week. There are maybe one or two things in the next episode that will circle back, but also, again, based on the preview, I think we're just going to be jumping some time and we're going to be into an Echo in the Bone. That is what I foresee for us happening. And so with that, we have some storylines we need to wrap up, and then some serious pain to deal out to us, okay? Like I said, I'm gonna cry. I'm a very emotional woman. If you've watched other reviews that I've done, you know that nothing gets my blood pumping like Jamie Fraser and Claire, and nothing pulls at my heartstrings and my tear ducts like this story. So I'm gonna do my very best, but it was a rough episode to watch last night because this story means so much to me. And the performances were so excellent. And also, I'll say this, I'm a daddy's girl. I am a daddy's girl. And Jamie and Brianna's relationship is one of my favorite relationships in fiction, for a daughter and a father. And so this episode particularly was just a knife to my tender, tender daddy heart, okay? Just so much. Okay, but let's start with where we are. So we do have this time jump. We can tell this by not only the fact that Claire's hair has grown out now, but also that, wow, her name just went right out of my head. That is straight Malva. We can tell that Malva's grave has grown over a bit, like there is grass growing there and time has passed. And we begin this episode with a voiceover from Claire, and we find Allan at Malva's grave, and he looks a little worse for wear, and Claire first starts being very compassionate towards him and, saying that she's sorry for the loss of his sister and his father. And very quickly things turn darkly. And really the first creepy moment was because first it's just him crying. Claire's like, you've lost everything. And he's like, you don't even know. And she's like, no, it's so sad. Losing her is so hard. And then he starts talking about how, he's loved her since the day she was born, and describing her body as, a baby that was interesting. It's just literally one line, and I was like, whoa, that is a subtle way to make things creepy. I don't know. You just have this rising dread, and Katrina Balfe does such a great job of portraying it on her face, where she goes from sympathy to like horror to disgust in this track, and it is intense. But basically Allan admits that he had been raping his sister. Of course, he doesn't say it that way, but we do see a clip of it. We do see some like flashbacks of it, of him assaulting his sister, and that the baby was his, and Malva saying that she needed to sleep with other men to make them believe that the baby was theirs. And we find out that it was Allan's idea for her to blame it on Jamie, and his plan was that Jamie would want to pay her off, that he would, you know, not want the scandal, and that he would just pay her off to go away, and then they could leave. But Malva, a very like tortured woman, and it's very interesting to see both sides of it, because we've heard Tom Christie's version of it, and now we're hearing you know, where to him, he saw his daughter as manipulative and causing a lot of like problems, and that he had tried to stop her from her evil ways. And it's very interesting to me, because once you hear what was happening to her by her brother, you do have great sympathy for her. And, you know, what a horrible existence she was living. You know, her father blaming her for the sins of her mother, and her brother using her as his sex toy, basically. Like, it's just, it's cracked. And I do think that Malva lies somewhere in the middle of this. You know, I don't think she was perfect. I do still question that maybe she was poisoning Claire and Tom. Like, there are things of her that she did that I wonder, but I also then wonder how much of that was the trauma she'd been through, and how much of it was her trying to, you know, take something for herself. And maybe she did see what Jamie and Claire wanted and was jealous and like wanted it, but couldn't actually ever go through with like hurting Claire, because she was someone who was giving her compassion and support. Like, who knows? Like, we'll never fully know, because we never get to ask Malva those things. And it's still tragic that her and her baby were killed by her brother lover, her abuser. And it's so sad to know that that's how she ended. And yeah, it's heartbreaking to see. So he is going to try to shoot himself. Claire's like, no, you don't get to do this. Your father traded his life for me, and it has to be worth something. But then, of course, we have Ian, and he shoots him, and he's like, he had to die. He's like, I thought for a while that child was mine, and even if it wasn't, that child still deserved to live, and like, Malva didn't deserve to have this happen. And so Ian takes it out of Claire's hands, which we're all happy that he does, because Allan was obviously greatly disturbed, and it's best. Like, we'll take the love for that for Ian. All right. Then we skip to Amanda. Okay, it's already gonna get tough. The easy stuff was talking about the incest, y'all. That was the easy part of this. Okay, so now we skip to Bree giving birth, and there's so many things I love about this scene. So one of the things that I complained about way back in the day is when Bree was having Jamie wasn't in the room. And I know you'd be like, why would your father be in the room? Well, it's a very powerful scene in Drums of Autumn, that because Roger isn't there, because of, you know, he's been sold to the natives, and Jamie is there helping her, support her while she gives birth. Both of her parents are there. And in the show, like, neither of them are there when the baby is born. And I hated that. And so for this, to have both Roger and Jamie and Claire all there for the birth of Amanda is beautiful. And so we get to have these beautiful moments. The baby was very clean. Okay, baby came out pristine with nothing on her at all. And I was like, Outlander, what are we doing? Come on. We are so accurate with other surgery things, and the baby comes out spick and span right out of the vagina. And I'm like, okay, whatever. We won't dwell on it. We have more things to get to. Oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. So I comment on, like, I love that Jamie was here. Also, Richard Rankin's been given a haircut, which was kind of funny. I wonder if that's supposed to be a thing he's doing for being a priest or whatever. I don't know, but I noticed his hair. It made me it made me kind of like lift my eyes a little because I don't know why his hair changed. But whatever, they can make it story accurate. Claire's hair grew. He decided to cut his. Whatever. Maybe they used it for the wig. Who knows? So then we just have these different moments. We see that Fergus and Marcelly put an announcement in the paper for Amanda. Oh, that's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So that's our little nod to Fergus and Marcelly. We definitely miss them. Although any storyline we have of them might be absolutely tragic. We shall see. I'll have a comment about that when we get to the end, because we're going to talk about some things that got left out of A Breath of Snow and Ashes when we get to that. So yeah, we have Jamie with Mandy, showing her his horse, and he's like, Granddad's gonna teach you how to ride, and he's carrying her around everywhere, and it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Jamie with baby's just like, it hurts me. But then we have Claire walking around with Mandy in her surgery, and she's just rocking her, and she notices something. She notices some discoloration in Mandy's nails, and that causes her to listen to her heart, and she hears a heart murmur. And now we have some painful reality crash into our beautiful family that is finally together, and nobody's being charged with murder, and we've had a new baby. And Claire discovers that there is a valve in her heart that when a baby is born, it is supposed to close, because like when you're in utero, it needs to be open. When you come out, it needs to close. There's a lot of amazing things that bodies do, both the female and their child, when a baby is born, and this hasn't happened. So what this will lead to is eventually the baby's not getting enough oxygen, and it will eventually lead her to get weaker and weaker and eventually die. And so it becomes very clear that this is something that could be done in the 1970s. It was something that was already being done before Claire came back, and Claire actually knows people in the future that would be excellent surgeons to do this. But this isn't a surgery that she can do. See, it's happening. This is a surgery that she can't do in the time. She can't do this to a baby. The ether isn't strong enough. You couldn't use ether on an infant like that, and you know, then Claire would be responsible for killing her granddaughter, right? She shouldn't be doing surgery on her granddaughter anyway, let alone, you know, an infant so small. But this is possible in the future. So this leads us to the heavy decision that the Mackenzies need to go. And first Bree is like, I'll go with her, you stay here. And he's like, no, like, you know, and it really is like they've traveled so far to be together. If they all can travel, like, they need to go. And so there's a really beautiful moment where, like, Claire is just feeling so, you know, futile, like there's nothing she can do. And Jamie asks, he's like, I know you don't care to do this, but I think we need to do what only we can do in times like this, and that's pray about it. And I really, really love that we brought that touch in there. And of course he wants to pray to the patron saint of like horse riding or something, which, you know, is a nod back to him wanting to teach her how to ride horses one day. But I love that we pulled that in. Like, Jamie is a man of faith. He's a man of action. He is a violent man sometimes, but he is a man of faith. And it is something that is throughout the whole series of like just the right amount of like, we know that he has faith, and it gets him through some of the worst times in his life. But he's not impractical about it, right? He's not impractical about it the way that Tom Christie is, right? He has it in just the right abundance, in my feeling anyway. You know, I'm partial to it. But then we need to find out if Mandy can go through the stones. Like, we don't know. And we also need enough gems so that they can go. So they're like bringing out all the gems that they have, and they only have, I think, like 2 of them, 2 or 3, I don't know. That part's not important. The point is we're hunting them down, and we have this first cute moment, which I love. They're starting to implement this because it's very wonderful for later on, so I'm glad we are sowing the seeds now. Jemmy says that Mandy can hear the stones. And they're like, what do you mean? And he's like, she told me. So this is very important because it is something throughout the later part of the series, right, that Jemmy and Mandy are able to like communicate. There is something a little paranormal about them. And we'll also have a little more about that from their grandsire in just a minute too. But okay, so then we go to Wilmington because we need to hunt for gems. And so who do we run into but William Ransom, the 9th Earl of Ellesmere, and just in time for Bree to get to meet her younger brother, who in the show, I think she's supposed to know about him. I believe she knows about him. I can't remember now what the show knows. In the book, this is when she finds out, type of thing. Like, she hasn't known forever, I think, again, right? Because I think she sees him and, like, realizes he looks like Da. Like, she knew that Lord John had a son, but not that it was him. I don't know. Okay, feel free to correct me down below. But either way, I think the show and the book are, like, opposite of each other. But in this one, she recognizes, and so she gets to meet him and say hello. And I remember in the book that, like, he kind of, like, was flirting with her, but she's like, nope, I got kids and a husband, but good luck. But anyway, he's joining the war efforts. The war is heating up, actually. And now, they haven't confirmed the time in this episode recently, but we'll talk about it when I get to the book section, that, like, we're very close to the first 4th of July in the story, which is crazy. So William is actually there to join up. He's 18 and he's gonna be a part of everything. Now, Jamie doesn't go up and say hi, but he does see Bree and Willie together for the first time. He sees them from across the way and he just looks at them, and those are his two bairns there. And, you know, that's a tough moment. But after William walks away, Lord John and Bree have a bit of a talk, and she kind of questions him, like, are you ever going to tell him who his father is? Now, she does ask that a little bit, like, is he ever going to know? And I understand it from John's point of view of, like, people have literally, like, died over this secret, and if he ever found out, like, he would be honorable and he would, you know, tell, and then he would lose his inheritance. Like, him pretending to be the son of the Earl of Ellesmere is everything, right? And John is already supposed to be his adopted father. Like, he knows that John is his adopted father, but he has been loved. Because if you don't remember way back, right? Geneva was the sister of the woman who raised John, right? Because the woman, she was the aunt of William, and then she marries John, and they raise him. So his mother and father both, like, died, like, the same day, I think is what happened, because the baby was born, Geneva died in the birth, the Earl saw the red hair and was like, this baby is a bastard, and then he ends up getting killed when he, like, almost killed the baby. So, like, all of that happened, like, long before he was born. So like, as far as William knows, like, none of his real parents are alive, but also John has been his father his whole life. And there's this beautiful moment where Bree is like, you know, when I found Da, it was amazing, but I wasn't looking for another father. You know, I had a daddy and I loved him, but Da is who he is. And so it was wonderful to have another father, but it didn't make me love mine any less. And, you know, she just reminds him, like, he is never not going to love you. He's always going to love you. So just keep that in mind. Very beautiful moment. Then we have Jamie goes to see John and talk, and, you know, just checks in about William, and he's like, I wish this war wasn't happening. And Jamie tells him that, like, seeing his children together is a picture that he'll never forget and that he'll hold in his heart. And then we have a breakup, basically, and this was also really emotional. Like, this was a breakup of, you know, John's like, are you not going to fight for the crown? And Jamie's like, I won't be. I won't be. I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything, but I won't be supporting the crown this time. And he's like, they're already calling them a misbehaving son. And he's like, well, the son has to leave its father sometime. Very emotional stuff happening. And then Jamie says, we need to sever our connection because it's dangerous for you. And John, the emotional man. He's just like, I hate this fucking war, right? It's so painful. And then Jamie tells him that he's looking for a gem for Bree, and John pulls out the sapphire that Jamie had given him all those years ago, and he's like, I've been keeping it for you, and maybe this is what it's for. If it's meant for Bree, here you go. And so he gives it back to him, and he's always kept it beside his heart. That is book accurate. He's always kept it with him all this time, of the love that he could never have, which does break my heart for John. It breaks my heart for John a little bit. And then Jamie tells him, he says, even in silence, I will remain your most humble friend. And John tells him that it's been an absolute pleasure to be friends with him. And that's their, like, breakup scene. I can happily tell you it's their breakup scene for now, but it still hurts, okay? It hurts a lot. Okay, then we have all the gems that we need. And Jamie has to go for a walk with Bree. Like, guys, I can't fucking make it through this. I'm sorry. But we go for a walk, and she's talking to him about Disneyland, and this is where we get the name of the episode. For a little while, it's the happiest place on earth. Mama and Daddy would take me there. And he's telling her about Mickey Mouse, which is just so cute. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful, and it's really hard because Jamie never thought he was going to get to see Bree. So she's a miracle to him that he's got to have any time with her at all. And Bree tells Jamie that, you know, that he was magical to her to have him. And it's just a beautiful moment between the two of them and her telling him stories of the future, and it's very special. So, we're not done crying yet. This is why I waited to film this video till last today, because I knew I was going to cry the whole time. I'm so sorry. I'm so unprofessional. But this is tough for me. Okay. So then we go to Jamie and Claire, and Jamie shows Claire that he has a gem for her that he has saved. For either if, like, he had died, he wanted her to be able to get back, because we've all learned it's very much not safe for Claire to be there when Jamie's dead, because everyone just comes after her almost immediately, basically. And Claire throws it out the window. And Jamie says, he's like, I'm not as brave as I was before. I can't live without you anymore. And she says that she loves him, but she won't leave. Whew. So then it's time for everyone to go back. And we're going to skip through these parts really quickly because I will literally be a puddle, okay? But we have all of our goodbyes happening. We have Jamie and Roger say goodbye, and Jamie says he's a man of honor and that he'll protect his daughter and the bairns. And then we have Claire and Roger, and she says, you felt like family the first time I met you, which is so beautiful because Roger's another orphan, and him and Claire, they had so many similarities back then, right? She was an orphan who'd been with her uncle, and he was an orphan who'd been with his great uncle. So they've always had that connection. I feel like the show, we don't get enough time for it just because whatever, but there's so many beautiful moments with Roger and Claire through this series. And, you know, he's the one who helps her get her love back too. And for him to be her son-in-law, it's just beautiful. We have Jamie and Jem, and he says the wonderful line, if you should ever meet a mouse named Michael, tell him your grandsire sends his regards, which is just so cute. And then we have Jamie and Bree, and I literally, in my notes, it just says, I've died now. And when they leave, Jamie says this line where he's like, for your sake, I'll go on, but for myself, I would not. And it's so hard, you guys, but it's also this really beautiful symmetry because Claire points out to her, I went through these stones for my baby, and now you're doing it for yours, and this is the right decision. And she also says, she's like, the last 2 times we said goodbye, we thought it was forever, and it wasn't. So let's not say that this time. And that's a warm, like, fuzzy feeling, at least, to have. Okay. All right. So we have that sadness. We then have a very sad Claire, who then is, like, trying to make something happen because she just wants to feel something. This is also, the show does kind of a good job showing this, but it is something in the book, and I've mentioned it in other reviews in the past, like, Claire and Jamie are a very physical couple. They are definitely a physical touch. They are also they process their emotions physically. A lot of times they've had sad sex, mad sex, breakup sex, get back together. They've never broken up, really, but I mean, like, reconnection sex, like, they do that through their bodies. And this is a time when, like, even that's, like, not enough, right? And so Claire's, like, trying to make something happen, and she just feels so broken, and Jamie's like, you just need to cry. Like, you just need to cry. Like, we just need to grieve. Like, everyone else in their time just thinks that their family moved to Boston, which isn't horribly far away. The thing that's interesting, though, this is something that gets pointed out in the book at different times. Sorry, I'm bringing book stuff in already. Is that back then, if your family moved far away, you probably aren't seeing them ever again. Like, think of our family in Scotland at this point. We haven't seen them in 30 years. They're alive, but, like, they're also as good as dead to you because of the difficulty of travel. You'll never see them, and the time difference is very different. And Jamie points out, she's like, it's like they're dead. And he points out, he's like, we've lost people. We've lost Murtagh. We've lost Faith. I've lost my father. They're dead. But this isn't the same. Like, they're going so that they can live, so our granddaughter can live. Like, it's not the same thing, right? Okay, we got to keep moving. Okay, so the last little bit here. We skip a little more ahead of time. Lizzie has had the baby. We get to see the Lizzie with her men there and the baby. So cute. And then we have Wendigo show up. And Wendigo Donner shows up, and he had escaped he was supposed to be put to death. He escaped, and he's looking for Gemstone to get home, and so he brought him and his friends. He brought some of the thievers with him. And he also asked Claire how she's able to travel where she wants to go. He wasn't able to do it. And she's like, I mean, there's no rules, but, like, you need to focus on where you're going, and having a gemstone helps you. Sorry, I, like, cried mascara into my eye, and now I can't see. So he brought some of his friends, and they start tearing everything apart. And it happens all very quickly now. They're not finding any gemstones, but they've, like, thrown the ether on the ground, and so that's very bad. The fumes, of course, could put everybody to sleep. And then also there is some gold that gets thrown out with some French treasure that the bugs brought. That is just mentioned very quickly, but Archbug and Mrs. Bug have some explaining to do. And then Wendigo lights a match in the room with the ether, and we just see a big explosion, and the episode is done. Which is nuts. Just crazy. So, all right, that's the end of the episode. What did I think of this one? Well, if you can't tell from my emotions, I thought this was beautifully, beautifully done. It absolutely wrecked me. I was crying most of the way through this episode. But it was so well acted and performed. It was beautiful. I will give this one a 9 out of 10. Because I just have to leave a bit of room. I may change my rating later on, but I would give this a 9 out of 10. I think it was beautiful. It was gut-wrenching. Everyone was on the top of their game, and it was fantastic. For book accuracy, I will give this one an 8 out of 10, actually. I thought they did very, very good on things. We're about to talk about some of the changes, and most of the changes have to do with timeline stuff, which is some things that we can't, like, super fix because we've sped some things up and slowed some things down. But mostly it just had to do with, like, rearranging things, not changing the content of things. So I give that definitely an 8 out of 10 for that. And it was absolutely so powerful. I loved it. So let's get into just discussing some of the changes and, like, book accuracy and stuff like that. So in this case, we have basically finished the book. Like, we're kind of going, like, this one's a little difficult because, like I said last time, we skip the drama with Stephen Bonnet because that already happened. So after where we were at the end of last episode, there is then a section of the book where Brianna gets kidnapped and she's pregnant during this time, and so that actually saves her from being raped again by Stephen Bonnet because he just thinks it's, like, I can't remember, he either thinks it's, like, wrong to rape a pregnant woman, I don't remember, but either way, that, like, gets kind of skipped because she is pregnant this time, which is why also in the show it didn't make sense to me why he didn't rape her, because she wasn't pregnant back then when we did that episode. So I don't know, but either way, we skip that part now. And really everything that was in this episode happens. Like I said, it was just moved around. And so, yeah, I don't really have problems with that, because we have Manda be born. Hold on, where did I mark it? In part 12. Like, the very last part of this book is Time Will Not Be Ours Forever. And the very first chapter is called Amanda. And this is about the birth of her, and we get to see that Captain Roger Mackenzie birthed their first child on the 1st of April, and her name is Amanda Claire Hope Mackenzie. So really what was just moved around was like that comes first. And so all the stuff with getting them out of there like comes first right there. And we kind of like power through that pretty quickly. And then then Allan shows up, then Wendigo shows up. So that's really just how they switch. And I kind of like that they had the Allan stuff like before the credits. Like they did all of that in like one scene, which is fine. It's only one scene in the book as well. They did basically, it's all like book accurate to that. We just like switch the order, and I think that makes sense because it makes it more of like a kind of like a 3-act thing instead of we start with Amanda as a huge chunk and then we had Allan and then we had Wendigo. Like it would have felt weird. So I don't have any problems with how they switched that around. So yeah, we just kind of switched that parts around for it. And then there was something else I was going to mention too. Oh yes, okay. The big thing that was kind of missed, and I don't know where they're going to put it, but something else that we missed in the end of this book is that Donald MacDonald dies. So we have a skirmish where I don't know what like the battle name of this one is called, but there is a fight that happens, and Jamie is fighting against the crown this time. And so there's this scene, and this happens before Roger leaves because Roger is there for it. And there is flashbacks to Culloden that Jamie has, and he feels like he's fighting with Murtaugh again. And he sees like Jack Randall, and he has these flashbacks with him. And Donald MacDonald dies. He gets shot through the throat, and he dies. And so that man is gone by the end of this book. And that's Jamie for sure like declaring his side because he's going to stand with the independents. And so in An Echo in the Bone, you'll see we'll be a part of the Continental Army. Yeah. So hopefully we get to see Jamie in blue. We want to see him in some blue, which will be fantastic. So honestly, I don't have as much to like nitpick for this. I really don't. I was really just floored by this episode. Breaking into it, as I said at the top of the episode, I find father-daughter relationships so special, and the way that this was performed and done, like Sam was just out of this world in this episode. The amount of like man tears, like when Bree tells him like you will live on in my heart and soul forever, and like you're never going to be forgotten. Because that is something he said, like, when you and your mother die, like, no one will remember me. And for Jamie to, like cry for that is just, you know, him and Bree have such a beautiful relationship. And no, it's not always perfect. She has her ideas of the future, and he tries his best to be progressive, but he's still from 1760s. Like, how progressive can you be in some aspects? But he is so strong. Like, he is so strong all the time. And I love when we get to see his tender heart for his grandkids and for his children. And it was just really beautiful stuff. So, yeah, I think I actually don't have much more to say. Yeah, for book accuracy-wise, I think it is well done. I'll be interested to see, oh, that's what I was going to say. For the next episode, it looks like we are going to be going into the Revolutionary War stuff. So we, of course, like, this episode ended with the ridge exploding, and then the preview shows, you know, everybody's fine right away, right? So it's kind of like the preview. You know, of course we know Jamie and Claire aren't going to die, but there's a lot of questions that all pop up. There are still a few like dramatic revelations that happen in the end of this one. We see a hint at 1970s Bree and Roger. I absolutely love the future timeline in the book, so I can't wait to see how that unravels. And if we have like skipped a little bit of time ahead so that we see like Jemmy and Mandy starting to like grow up and see what Roger and Bree are up to. I'm very interested to see how they will play out that storyline, because will they keep it compelling enough to match what's happening in the other timeline? I don't know. It's definitely a timeline that the first time I read the book, I wasn't as interested in, because I wanted to know what was happening to Jamie and Claire, and also William, who I know people have conflicted feelings about William, but I think he has a wonderful character arc, so I'm excited to get to know him more and to see how he, you know, what we get to see of him. And we have some new characters we'll need to meet, right? We are going to have some Quakers coming in, which I'm very excited for. So, all right, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you for making it through this. I'm so sorry I cried all over you guys, but also this is what you're here for. I mean, this is who I am. This is what these books and these stories do to me, and I'm glad you're here for the ride. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.